stood around there looking at the airplane, and nothing happened, so we started walking back. And about that time, Captain, I can't think of his name, Thornton. Captain Thornton came up. He was our squadron engineering officer. And he drove up in his Jeep. His airplane was parked, maybe 100 yards away. And he drove up, and his face was red as a beet, and he jumped out of that Jeep, and he come up, and all he could say is, "What happened?" And the pilot said, "Well, the bombs fell out." And he said, "Well, you got to be careful with those things. Somebody's going to get hurt." And the pilot says to him, "Well, I guess we won't fly on this one." He says, "We haven't got any bombs." And the captain says, "Like hell, you won't." He says, "We need your position in the formation for a gun cover." He says, "You're going on this one, bombs or no bombs." So it was about 5 minutes more, and for engines time, and they delayed a little bit. So I don't know, it was a weather problem or something. They gave us a 30-minute delay. In the meantime, he had taken off in his Jeep and got the ordnance people out there. And there was a corporal and a staff sergeant came up, and they had their toolbox, and they went to work on those bombs. They were taking the fuses out of the broken ones and putting pins back in the other ones. So we walked over there, and we were kind of looking over their shoulder, and he turned around and he says, "Hey, you guys get out of here." He said, "Well, what's to worry about? The pins are in." He says, "Yeah, when they're broken like this," he says, "we don't know what they'll do." So then we took off again. We moved back, I don't know, 200-300 feet, I guess. And so then it was engine start time when they finally cleared it away. And later, I'd say about a month later, both of those men were awarded the Soldier's Medal, which is the highest award you can get for bravery outside of combat. So I guess it was really a risky situation we had there. So we went out on the mission and got halfway across the channel on the way out, and we got a recall. They said the weather was too bad. So we turned around, and in those early days of operation, all the planes would drop their bombs in the channel on the way back. Nobody brought any bombs back. So we watched all those bombs going down there, and we felt kind of comfortable that our bombs were all back home, nice and dry. So we landed, and the CO came down. He started talking to the bombardier about this and getting pretty excited. And afterwards, Pete says to me, he says, "Geez," he says, "I don't know what he's so damn excited about." He says, "I saved him a whole damn load of bombs. The others are all in the channel." So, well, we went on. There was no more said about it after that. And then we went on and continued flying. And along came September 9th, 1943. And they told us at briefing, the first thing they said, he says, "Guys, this may be it." And he says, "This may be the invasion." And he says, "You guys are going out there today. We're sending out 3 formations of 18 airplanes. You're going to hit the coastal guns at Boulogne." And he says, "You'll see the ships going across the channel." So after briefing and form up and all that, we started across the English coast, and we could see all the ships out there. There was quite a few of them, maybe 50 or 60 that we could see. So we flew on over to the Boulogne area, and about a mile offshore, we started catching heavy flak. And there was a jetty there, and they had 2 gun positions out there, sort of a barge anchored out there, and they had two 88s on there, and we were banging away at it. They told us these coastal guns were 12 to 15-inch bores. There were 3 in a turret, and then they had some 210-millimeter guns that were 4 in a concrete encasement, and then they had several gun sights there for 88 and 128-millimeter flak. And I think they were using everything they had. For a while, we thought they got those coastal guns pointed up in the air, and we could smell that acrid smoke when our bomb bay doors were open. We were on the bomb run, and my normal search on where we were flying would be number 5 position in the lead flight, would be from 3 o'clock or straight out of beam from the airplane around to 6 o'clock and then overhead. And well, I never looked in that position steadily. My head was like it was on a swivel, because if something hit that airplane on the other side, I want to know about it real quick. So I just snapped my head around to the left, and I saw a B-26 tail going by, from the top turret was no longer on it, but from the back of the top turret, the entire tail assembly was floating by about a 15-degree angle down. And then I turned around towards the front, and just as I got my head up against the glass, I was looking straight into the cockpit of the airplane that tail assembly belonged to. The door between the radio compartment and the flight deck had flopped open, and I could see up there the pilot's pedestal, just as it was starting a slow spin. And of course it was out of my view then in a matter of seconds. And the thing that shook me up was the fact that tail number wasn't the number that was flying there in the first place. It was 639 was the last three digits on that tail number. And the reason I remember it is because it belonged to Lieutenant Howard, and his name of his airplane was Gambler's Luck, and my tail gunner and I flew our first mission with him a few weeks before. So just about that quick, old 639 pops back up in position again. I didn't find out till later what had actually happened there. The number 3 man had gotten hit right in underneath the belly and broke the airplane in two. And they crashed about, it must have been maybe 300-400 yards short of our aiming point. And nobody had managed to get out of the airplane, although one crew reported a parachute on fire. But I didn't see that. All I saw was the tail assembly in the forward half. And then we made a real quick turn off the target to get back out over the North Sea again. And Colonel Lockhart was very upset at this point because we had some Typhoon escort. It wasn't the type we normally had where they would fly close to us. They were umbrella cover. They said they'd have fighter planes over that beach all morning long. So they were making a turn about that time, and they came over. They weren't any more than 200 or 300 feet above us. The whole flight of those things. And the colonel was kind of upset because he said they told us they would stay 1,000 feet above us at all times, no less than that. So we flew on back and went through interrogation and turned in our reports and all that sort of thing. And that was called a mock invasion. There was another incident when we were bombing Lille airfield at Lille, France. We were lined up on our bomb run, and we were just about 10 seconds before bombs away, and the airplane flying to our immediate left was flown by Romney Spencer, and he lost an engine. His right engine quit, and he managed to stay up in speed, but he had to lower his nose to do it, and then I heard the bombardier say bombs away, and he managed to drop with the flight, and then he started falling steadily back, and 4 Spitfires came in and swooped down all around him, and about that time there was a towering cumulus cloud column, and 2 Focke-Wulf 190s came roaring around that cloud and started to pass at him, and all 4 of those Spitfires went after those 2 and immediately shot both of the German planes down about the time that Spencer ducked into a cloud. And we were continuing on back. This was maybe 30 miles from the coast on our way out. He lost quite a bit of altitude while he was going through that cloud. He came out about 4,000 feet, he told me, and right over the beachhead, his other engine sputtered and quit. So here he sits with both engines out, and his co-pilot and he were some mad hands flying all over that pilot's pedestal trying to get that engine started, working the throttle and the primer and starter and everything all at once, and while he's flying with his left hand. And finally the engine caught, and they got down as low as 50 feet before that engine came to life, and they were down around 140 miles an hour at this point. And they had already told the crew, get ready to ditch, we're going to put it in the water. So when that engine came on, well, then everything was okay for momentarily, and they crossed the channel about 50 feet all the way. They couldn't get up any higher than that. And about 5 miles off the coast, the good engine, if you can call it that, had a runaway prop, and they knew the ghost was up then.